part of Project 571, genetically engineered vampire created to destroy evil.
What do you want?
We need your help to kill a vampire.
Malleus Maleficario. It was written by a witch. The first witch. Titania.
That was a little snippet from The Witch's Hammer, the first film I ever solo directed, and it's just been remastered and re-released on Amazon. So if you like witches and vampires, then please do check it out. Anyway, let's get on with this week's episode. So I normally talk to filmmakers at the end of the journey when they're distributing their film, or it's about to be released, or it's just been released. So I thought it'd be interesting this time to talk to a couple of filmmakers at the very start of a journey. So I spoke to Daniel Talbott and Andrew Klaus-Vineyard, who are about to shoot a feature documentary. Andrew is an indie filmmaker. He's made a bunch of short films. Daniel comes from a theatre background, but he's also written scripts on big shows like The Conners, The Big C, and The Mist. So this was an interesting chat for me because I was able to ask them all the questions I say you should ask when you begin shooting a feature, you know, who the audience is, where they're going to watch it, stuff like that. So we go through all of that process and we also hear about the project and what's brought them both together. Enjoy. So I'll start with you, Daniel. Tell me about your route into the industry.
Oh, man. I was a baseball player as a kid, and I was a very serious baseball player. And then I found theater and it was like going from a girl that you really think is hot to like someone you're in love with, and I was like, oh my God, I've fallen in love. And I like left baseball to go do theater. And I kind of broke my grandpa's heart because he was like, he had some like, dream that I was going to like play college ball or whatever. And, but that was around 15, 16 and that it became my home instantly. And, theater, TV and film became my life like very quickly and saved my life in a lot of ways.
Amazing. What about you, Andrew?
I grew up in a really small town, so the arts were the only sort of access I had to the world. So going to the movies just sort of was like going to church for me. So I kind of fell into it in a circuitous path. I went into music. I was in a lot of punk bands, and then I was in visual art and fell into theater for a decade, and then kind of came back to film and TV, which is where I am now in LA. So very happy with that. It sort of was always the destination. The journey was just a little wobbly.
Little wobbly, yeah. I'm similar in that I think when I discovered film, maybe there's something about having this kind of escapist mentality where you need to kind of be someone else and watch something else or create something else. But maybe that's something to do with childhood. So you guys, Daniel, are you mainly a scriptwriter, or what's your kind of main money job thing that you do?
My money job is definitely TV and screenwriting. There's not a lot of money in micro budget directing.
Yeah, tell me about it.
But I make my living as a screenwriter director, but I would say like primarily my source of income is screenwriting and TV writing, for sure.
Screenwriting. And Andrew, what do you get up to?
Honestly, I'm kind of pivoting from working in theater full time. I was an artistic director of a theater company and a director there for 10 years. So, and then I do music, but I've pivoted to screenwriting and directing full time. And like Daniel said, there's not a lot of money in it. So I'm very happy that I'm married to a psychologist. So to cover the gap, but, cause the pay gap is real. But that's kind of my path, is to jumping in the deep end.
Jumping in the deep end. And Andrew, so you've made a bunch of short films, is that right, Andrew? That's your kind of background.
Yeah, I worked a lot in experimental film, and then this year made the jump into more narrative film with a film called Unknown at Large. It's a horror film that's going to be hitting festivals soon, hopefully. And then I'm still making experimental things too, but I'm moving more into more narrative work, and I'm writing a feature now. So that's
amazing. So then let's just while we're on that, because people want to know, and I love a bit of horror. What the short film you made? How did you get it funded? How did you get it made?
Very punk rock style. It was all made by people donating free time, like a long weekend. I mean, that's one of the upsides to the downside of things in LA right now. A lot of people have free time and want to do something. So I had a script that was getting a little bit of attention at festivals. And so people responded to it. Daniel came on board to produce, and I found a cinematographer who had a weekend free. I found an editor who was just in LA working, and he's from Denmark and is amazing. I found a colorist who donated their time. So I funded it, paying for things myself. And then my very last paycheck from the theater paid for sound mixing. So that's kind of how it was funded. It was very scrappy, guerrilla filmmaking.
Yeah, oh, I know the feeling. And but one more thing on the short film. So for someone thinking of doing a short film, what's the one thing that you wish you'd known when you started making it?
That it's going to take longer and than you ever think it's going to. But the thing I learned the most on this film is this is the first time I've worked where I delegated out so much more. I'm used to editing myself, shooting myself, because working more in visual art, that was sort of the way I made films. It's good to let go of things, and the collective is a lot stronger than the individual, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I always say you have to let go of stuff, because otherwise it's a team sport, isn't it, filmmaking? And if you don't do that, you miss out on everyone else's creativity and ideas. So it's always worth listening to them. And so, Daniel, you've done a lot of, like, I don't know how to describe it. Would you say like mainstream TV shows, that kind of stuff, script writing?
I've done, I made my living in the theater for 25 years, 24 years as well, and then transitioned to film and TV. I was still doing film and TV when I was in the theater, but primarily I was in the theater, and now primarily I'm in film and TV and still in the theater as well. So it's kind of like, it's kind of the scales are balanced a little bit. But yeah, it's, I've gotten to work on everything from, a huge, sitcom like The Conners to crazy weird independent stuff, which is kind of much more my jam. Like, I'm into really kind of like more micro budget queer film making. So it's, but all of them have been, I've been so lucky. Like, I've worked with amazing people and people I love, and really kind people, and gotten a lot of different experiences, which I think kind of all that texture goes into making the work that I make now, which I really, really appreciate. And so I've just learned from some really awesome people who have done it a lot longer than me, and that's really influenced the kind of, especially like the queer independent film that Andrew and I do so much of now, which has been really cool.
Yeah, which we're going to talk about in a second. And it's interesting chatting to you guys, because normally I'll speak to somebody at the end of that process where they look completely haggard, destroyed. They've done it, it's out, and they're furiously trying to get
haggard, destroyed all the time. I feel like that's my daily.
Daily. That's just look. Standard running look. So yeah, so normally you talk to people at the end of the process, but this is interesting because you've got how can I phrase this, particular type of movie. So it's documentary. So tell you what, let's set up what is it first of all? Give me the pitch.
It's a feature doc that Andrew and I are co-directing, that we're working with three really amazing producers on, Kirsten Kelly, Rachna, and then Noel. And then also we have a composer that's just come on board, Jonah. And so it's what it is about basically. I met someone who we were talking about ACT UP, like the early days of ACT UP and the AIDS crisis and stuff like that. And he was like, if you ever want to meet a gaggle of men who survived the AIDS epidemic, there's this bar in Palm Springs called the Tool Shed, and they all hang out there, and they've all come from all over the country, all over the world, and kind of, moved or retired in Palm Springs. And so it's this kind of beautiful, filthy, wonderful bar that is a gateway into these men that survived the AIDS epidemic and lost their chosen family and their husbands and their partners and their lovers and their best friends, and are now kind of at the end of their lives. They're in their late 70s, 80s, and so we were like, oh God, this is a great story and way into kind of telling these people's story, these people who survived AIDS, basically, who are the survivors. And so that's, we got fascinated with that. And I think also fell in love with the bar, even though I think neither of us are really bar people, but we kind of felt like, this place is awesome. And so we were like, so yeah, that's how it, I think, began.
And because I don't live in America, geographically, when you say Palm Springs, is that near you guys? Is that miles away? Is this going to be
No,
something you're going to be able to
you
do
know,
at a
there's
weekend?
actually an amazing old Hollywood story. So Palm Springs kind of happened. It's very Hollywood based because the studios had it in their contracts that you couldn't be farther than 2 hours away by car for like their movie stars. So Palm Springs is about an hour and 45 minutes, 2 hours from Los Angeles out in the desert. And so all the great movie stars like Cary Grant and, you know, directors like George Cukor and stuff, they all had houses out there because it was in the studio contract and it still obeyed that contract and they could get back to LA in 2 hours.
Amazing. Okay, so you got your topic for your documentary. You've got a location. I'm assuming the bar are on board with the documentary and are happy for you guys to be there because that would be a bit of a deal breaker. So what's the plan now? What point are you at in the production?
Well, we've done a couple of production meetings. We've set the plan, and we're about to go out next month to do our initial interviews. So we'll go out for like a week. We will talk to people, maybe shoot some initial footage, kind of so that we don't lose anything, and kind of look at that footage and kind of find who our stars are, who are the characters, whose stories we want to tell, and how do we kind of shape that into a narrative. And then we'll go back and film more and more and more, and then kind of dig into the research and the history of, you know.
Yeah, and kind of like starting to build like you were saying, like a team, you know, a team that includes not just our team, but also kind of the team that is in Palm Springs, which is the community, you know, and kind of figuring out who our team is and who the players are, and starting to also, like, you know, local businesses and meet up with local media people and local people that work in film, and just trying to kind of find collaborators that can make this documentary happen on a crazy micro budget. And you know, and with a lot of love and kind of, you know, glue holding it together, which, like, you know, a lot of gum holding it together. You know, so we're really at the very beginning, which is we thought would be so interesting to talk with you about, because it's like you said, that's not the usual kind of process. So we're starting out, which is cool.
Starting out, and it's interesting because documentary, in theory, you might think, oh, documentary, that'll be easier because I'll just book in a bunch of interviews, get some shots of the place, maybe I'll reconstruct some stuff. I mean, I tried to do a documentary a while back and it just couldn't get it finished because I couldn't. It was too big an issue for me to handle on my own. So with this, do you think you'll be guided by those characters you meet and kind of drill in and decide as you speak to them, right, this guy is really interesting, we're going to continue to follow him, or have you already got people in mind you think are going to kind of be the stars of the documentary?
Do you want to go, Andrew?
Yeah, I'll just say, like, for me, the best documentaries, the ones that I go back to over and over again, are character driven. They are about the person and that kind of deeply personal, individual things. You know, like Grey Gardens, for example. You know, the overall story is, you know, shocking and exciting and kind of interesting, but it's the individual relationships that make you want to spend time with them. So I think for us, it's find those people that are compelling, whose stories need to be told. And especially right now, what's going on in our country, like, find those stories that need to be told and then tell them as loudly as we can so that, you know, they get heard. I think you find them, it'll kind of like percolate up as we go.
I think like what Andrew's saying, another way to say that is to listen to the stories that are being told to you, and then the narrative kind of appears out of that, and having the time to do that, which is really which I think we really are excited about. We aren't going in with an agenda. We're going in with like big kind of open hearts, hopefully, and open ears, and we want the story to kind of dictate to us where the film goes in a way, and discover that.
The three questions I would ask you now, which I would ask somebody if they were going to start any project, and see if you can answer these for me, is, first of all, who is it for? So who's this for, this documentary?
You know, like, it's interesting. Like, in the last couple of days, I posted this thing on Instagram and Facebook, which has been interesting, the response, about going out with queer films, because I have a new film. Andrew has a film that I've produced that we're working on. So we're going out to the festival circuit with it. And there's a lot of the queer festivals. It has been like, you know, community, you know, can't wait to see you in our city. So excited to meet you. Like, how do we make films together? and mine is very sexual on purpose. It's very much about lovemaking in the queer community. It's very much about like having to come face to face with that gay men make love the way a straight man and a woman make love, you know what I mean? And like and try to express their love through their bodies. And the pushback, especially from kind of like non-queer festivals, it's been fascinating and also like really scary in how they're doing it, because it's all very politically correct and it's all very sweet and kind, but it's also like very much a no. You know what I mean? Like we do not want that in our community. You know what I mean? And so like with this film, I want it, of course, to play. I love the queer festivals. I love Frameline, BFI Flair. Like I thank God for those festivals. But I also want to play Omaha, and I want to play Sedona, and I want to play Anchorage, and I want to play, like, I want to have I feel like these men became ghosts. Like our community became ghost-like in the AIDS epidemic, and kind of were pushed aside and going like, oh, we don't want the fucking plague here near us towards our heterosexual communities. Even though a lot of heterosexual people, I think more heterosexual people now have HIV than homosexual people, but so but at the time I feel like that community became a ghost. And so like I want people to have to watch this that are part of many different communities, to get voice to that, to kind of bring those voices and be like, hey, I want to talk about this as a community. These are not people that disappeared. These are people that are still here, who lost pretty much fucking everything through this plague. While a lot of our government ignored it, and pretended it didn't exist. They didn't want to talk about it. So that's important,
okay. Yeah. Okay. So that's who it's for. So the challenge there, and I can see the with your movie, like you were saying about some film festivals saying, oh no, that's a bit much for our film festival, is, as a lot of film festivals do, they might be thinking, oh, that's going to turn this lot of people off, or it's not going to fit in. We're not going to be able to program it at this time. There's a million reasons to say no to the film festival. If you're going for a wider audience with this documentary, how are you going to reach them, do you think? And how are you going to get them into the cinema in the first place? And that's a lot to ask because you haven't shot it yet.
I have ideas, but Andrew, I want you to hit it first.
I think my thing is, especially kind of with what was going on now, is a discussion I had with another artist friend about another project, was that right now we need joy more than, queer joy is more useful than queer anger. It's easy to be angry or sad and turn off people. People are tired of hearing, the kind of the tragedy. For me, is the focus of the documentary is not on what we've lost, it's what we've gained since. Like, look how far we've come, look how far we still have to go, but it's attainable because look how far we came in such a short span of time, kind of in the historic record. It's a short span of time. So I think for me is to focus on, the joy of it, the community building, the camaraderie, and kind of remind people that there is a community. I mean, I grew up in a town of like 650 people. I always joke that there's like more alligators than there are people in my hometown. It's a very small little swamp. I would go to the video store and rent movies and, and rent films. And I like, being like 10, 11, 12 and getting like a Derek Jarman film, like just picked it up off the shelf, led me down a path to the career I have today. You just make things, you put it out there. And I'm a firm believer that a piece will find its audience. And I think if you can give them some like hope and joy, or, light a righteous fire in them, like that is the purpose of art, is to just, I'm okay being uncomfortable with things. So I think if you're a little uncomfortable with the subject matter, that's room to grow. Being uncomfortable is not a bad thing. Being uncomfortable isn't, a negative. It's an area of growth. And so I want people to come see the film when it's done, and hopefully, feel a part of a bigger human family.
Yeah, and I think like starting like part of why we're why we reached out to do this podcast with you is like we want to start early, to start kind of getting the word out there that we're trying to tell this story, that we're trying to get involved with this community, and to start to just as early as possible bring people on and get them excited about hearing these stories, hopefully, and also with the team that we build, building a team that has has connections with PBS and has connections with like trying to think about the long term of this story from the very get-go, is very, I think, really, really important, and especially with docs, but with films in general now, I think you kind of have to think about distribution at the very top now because it's so difficult to distribute films, and so we're trying to think about it in that way and organically, like having this conversation with you, kind of going like, hey, come listen to our story, get to know us. So who knows who will discover and listen to this podcast and go like, hey, I want to follow that story and see where they go with that film and see what that film becomes. So trying to think about it in that way was, part of it. And then also just like, I think America loves an underdog story, and there is not a better underdog story than the gay community, other than a community of Black community, Latinx community, but they like any community that's been othered is an underdog story, and Americans love that. And I feel like if we tell that story well, it will be accessible on that level. Like it's such in the DNA of American filmmaking, the underdog story. And I feel like, gay people, queer people, they're warriors. Like they're underdogs and they have fought and they are here and they will always be here. And that's the story we're trying to tell. And I think that that's a story that is inherent in American filmmaking. And so I feel like through that, we can bring people into the audience and that they can just go, oh, I know this story. This is the cowboy story. This is, this is John Wayne, even though it's about queer people, so, so like, we're hoping that people will be able to tune in and kind of find the ride that way as well, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Last one of my three questions, which you sort of semi-answered, but I guess it's taking it a step further. So you've told me who it's for, you've told me how you're going to reach them, and the last one is, where are they going to be able to watch the film? So obviously it sounds like you're going to start festival run, then maybe try and get it on TV. Is that what you're thinking, or like a Netflix thing?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely the festival run is the first kind of hopeful thing. And then it would be amazing if it took off and then people liked it, our Oscar winner this year for documentary still doesn't have distribution, because of what it's about. It'll be interesting. Like, we're going to do everything we can to get it out there, but distribution is such a crazy, wild cowboy ride in our culture, in American filmmaking, and I think all over the world, but I'll just speak for America, that it's like, it's a huge part of the question mark and the unknown. And so I have no idea how it will get out there, but I know we will try every avenue possible to do that, So
Yeah, definitely. So then last one on this would be, have you set yourself a time? Have you said, right, year from now we're going to be finished filming it, or how's that going to work time?
I mean, our schedule right now is the initial stuff starts next month and then hopefully shoot more in June. We're trying to do it as kind of fast and dirty as possible and just get it made, because I feel like it's important to get the story out there as soon as possible. I think it's a story that a lot of people could learn from. They always say that the best way to change people's minds is to sit down and have a conversation with them and let them get to know you as a person. So this is a chance to do that. And I think kind of we want to get it made as swiftly as possible.
Yeah. Incorporating people that we admire, like Greg Araki and like Todd Haynes and Derek Jarman and Jenny Olsen and people like that, who have just punk rock style made their fucking films no matter what, and made queer films no matter what. And so I think we're trying to kind of incorporate just that spirit into us making this. And we have zero money right now. And we're like, what? We've asked friends that we can stay out of their house. I have a camera, like Andrew knows about sound shit because he is in a band, so we're just going to figure it out and go out and try to, in the best way possible, make the greatest film we can make with little to nothing. And then hopefully find, again, collaborators and community that will help us finish that film, but yeah, it's fascinating. I know we're going to try to start with also cutting kind of a short version of it so that we can, have people hopefully get interested in it and kind of get on board with us. So we'll probably start by trying to get that first. I'm trying to get our friend Johannes in Denmark to donate his time in the middle of the night for free to do this as an editor. I hope you're listening, Johannes. I'm coming out to you in Denmark.
I'm sure he is.
You cannot run. We know where you live. So just doing that, like finding our team through friends and family.
Yeah. Well, you've just described the micro budget life perfectly,
Yeah.
and I wish you both the best of luck with it. And not only because it sounds like a cool film and it sounds like it could be really interesting, but obviously I want you to come back in a year or so's time with an Oscar and a distribution deal, so I can claim some sort of credit for helping the film along its way. But I tell you what I'll do. I'll end with a question I ask all of my guests. So I'll start with you, Daniel. Have you got a motto?
Yeah, the work is the compass. The work is the thing. The rest of it does not matter. The only reason that you're doing this job is to make film, and it's not about anything. And I think especially in America, people get caught up in a lot of other shit that come with this business. The only thing that matters is that you're making a film. To do the film. The film is the compass. The film is the thing. Just do the work, be good to people. You can do it with kindness as easy as you can do it by being an asshole. And you can do it with sharing. You can do it with community. And you really can. Like, you get more, I think, out of giving and sharing resources with people than you do out of hogging it and trying to kind of like climb on top of the heap. I really believe that. And the work is the thing. That's the compass, always, I think. So.
Cool. What about you, Andrew?
I think for me, whether it's, film, theater, music, whatever, I think you have to remember you're all in this together as a community, and you need to show up and show out for each other. It's something I keep saying, especially on our small queer filmmaking group, is, show up and show out. I think it's a dangerous mindset to always be in competition rather than in conversation with each other's work. So I think it's really important to just show up, support each other, and make each other's work, because you have to make a film to make a film to make a film. You have to make work to make work. And I think that's just sort of how I'm trying to live my life, is just do a good job, help everybody out, and leave this world in a slightly better place than I found it in, if at all possible.
I hope that was useful. If you want to listen to another episode with a filmmaker who's made documentary projects, then you could listen to How to Be an Ethical Filmmaker with Ben Viber. Ben's worked on entertainment news in the US and China, and also produced a South by Southwest winning Oscar shortlisted documentary. So he's a great one for tips on making documentaries and getting them out there.